Hello and welcome to another Rivalry update. So, currently been working on a few things, and let's just get straight into it. So, here we go, there's a nice one. So I still have vorpalized weapons on. There we go, nice and quick. So, the first thing you'll notice is the slider graphic has changed. Previously it was just a simple line with a little dot in it that you would move around and it would work just like a slider. However, I had to change it because that slider I was using before was a default Unity asset, which it works, it does, good easy things. The issue with it though is the math it does to work out where the actual scrubber is in relation to the scrubber region's length. Which would basically, it would do some math which wouldn't quite work out the way I wanted it to, so when I would change the duration using my selection slider over here, it would do some weird math and you'd see it kind of move around and do a little bit of stuttering. So I've just made an entire new slider. It was pretty easy to do, but if you look here, it's basically a simple yellow square on a grey background. Now this isn't going to be the definite slider, this is just a placeholder for now. And currently I'm just using it just to give a simple idea of what's going to look like. I'll try to get graphics, some proper graphics going later, which will make it look a lot prettier. But it works well, it feels good. The other thing that I've been working on, which is probably one of the hardest things I've been working on, is interpolation. To be more specific, I actually have something called a linear interpolation. Now, linear interpolation is when you get two sets of data points, and then you basically have you give it a rate, and the computer will work out and create new data points in between those two. So the way I used it here is basically, the issue I had was that when you, say for example, slow down the video, it would be very jumpy and stuttery, and that would create a very ugly piece of video. Now to fix this, basically, what I've done is, so as you can see here, basically it's really stuttery, it's just really, it just doesn't look very good. Now, what I've done is I've added linear interpolation to it, so now it will smoothen out. Basically, it'll create new frames in between each frame. So as you can see here, I'm doing it for everything I'm doing, from the movement indicator, the cursor. Now, I've also done it for the bodies and the weapons and just everything. So basically this makes it look a lot smoother and a lot less jagged, and yeah, so it works quite well. As you can see, that there are little few issues I have to pick up on and I have to fix. For example, sometimes a weapon might move and the entire body won't have a nice flow, but especially the weapon for some reason, and all of a sudden it will just get stuck there for a while and it'll continue on. But also, so here's a simple interaction diagram that explains how interpolation works. So Replay, which is one of my classes, will go through and it will call a method called find. This will then go to recording, and that will call a method called search, and it'll have, as one of its parameters, it'll have a time code. It'll then go into the frame data list and it will search for the frame that has a time code, and I use binary search to do this. It's a lot faster, and basically if you have a long fight that may have millions of frames, it'll save on a lot of computing power. It'll then return that and then get the next frame, which is simple, so they get the current frame and then +1 to that, return that. And then with those two frames, it'll then go over to a virtual frame and then create a series of frames that were in between the two other frames we just collected. Once it has created one of these virtual frames, it will return it, and then that'll be the end. I've also balanced the weapons. So this can be, I think the main weapons I've balanced is the battle axe here and the rapier, also the sledgehammer. I had a lot of complaints that the sledgehammer was just really underpowered, and so to fix that, I basically have added something called a mass multiplier. Now this actually, it's technically a force multiplier because it's both, basically to calculate damage I have a speed multiplier. So for example, if you were to slightly rub the blade of this battle axe on the other player, it would create a very small amount of damage. However, if you were to bash it into them, it would create a lot of damage. Now, to make a force, you need speed, but you also have to add mass to it. So basically the damage is also calculated on how much mass there was, and since I didn't have that before, the sledgehammer, which is basically a weapon that's completely based on mass, did very little damage and just didn't feel very authentic. And so now that I've added it, it's a lot more powerful, and also things just feel a lot better, and also just very satisfying when you clonk off a head with a sledgehammer or battle axe. Now, if we go through, basically, I think there's still some work to be done on the sledgehammer and rapier, but I think I have it still pretty good. The knife is still as powerful as it was, which is good. I heard a lot of people liked the knife, and especially also the katana, so they're still just as powerful as they were before, but it's just basically all these other weapons which are based on mass now have this mass multiplier. The katana and other weapons also have mass multiplier, but because they're quite light, it doesn't take into effect that much, so that's how I built it. So, for example, if I were to build, I remember before I made a longsword have a mass of like literally a few tons, and it would just very slowly move. However, when you would make contact, it would just melt through other people like butter, which was quite amusing. So so far, it's mainly working. I just have to fix a few more bugs. There's always going to be more bugs. There's always more bugs. And probably get sharing working, which will definitely help a lot. And yeah, I think after that, it's almost ready to be released, which will, well, the next update will be released, and you'll be able to have replays and then share them with friends, which will be very fun. So I'll see you in the next Rivalry update, and yeah, see you then.